Hey, what's up, everybody? Paul's not here today, so I guess I have to do the introduction.
Hey, y'all, there's no Paul. Hey, where's Paul?
Paul is traveling right now. No, that's my
Paul,
wife.
we want to go where you're at.
I know. I think Paul is emergency job stop right now to make sure that everything is all good with something that he's got going on. So today what we're going to be talking about is no wrong way to start your business. There is never any perfect time, right? I always like to try and relate it to having kids. When are you ready to have kids? You're not until they just pop out, and then you just got to roll with the punches. We got a couple of guests here today. We're actually over near Detroit right now at a training. So we got Dave Garden from CFI. We have, you go by Joe or Joey?
Either one. Joey Zago.
Joey Zago from the Carpet Guys. As you can see, the Zago, doesn't matter, right? It's all the same.
Tomato.
And then we got people hiding back here too. We got Angel. Y'all got to get in here too and come introduce yourselves.
Angel, I'm an installer from South Haven Court area, a small town. Do a lot of work in Grand Rapids, mostly freelance. Happy to be here. Happy to listen, learn.
What are you going to be doing?
I want to be a certified
Teaching a 5-week class.
Teaching a 5-week class. He's here learning to teach. So, you know, we got Jimmy back here.
Jimmy Salisbury from Westfield, Indiana. Installation.
So we got a lot of people on here today. So,
and Crystal Sims.
oh yeah, Crystal's over here, but
no, we don't care about her today.
They do see you too much. You've been on a few of them already. So when you're starting your business, like when Jose and I started in 2010, it was actually a horrible time because it was the month that my first kid was born, and it was like basically starting off with nothing and trying to pick up pieces and figure things out as we went. So as you can see, you know, we're 12, 13 years deep now. We've got some roots in the industry and trying to just, you know, build everything up, but it wasn't always this easy. A lot of the times hey, Paul is jumping on. A lot of the times you just have to, that's what you have to do. And like I said, it's like having a kid. You go in and think that it's going to be one way, and then the kid proves to you that what you thought is not how things are going to go, and then you just pick things up and move along. So, hey, Paul, how's it going?
What's up, guys?
Hey, I had to do the introduction since you weren't here.
He didn't do it very well.
My man, coming through in the clutch.
Trying. So we
Good
got
job.
we got a few people over here.
I see some familiar faces.
Yep. So I was just saying how, you know, we started in 2010, around when my first kid was going to be born, and there's really never a perfect time to start a business. And you're just learning as you go, just like when you have a kid, right? It's figure things out. That's all you can do.
Most times businesses are started, entrepreneurs leave for the working out of necessity than out of want, right? No one ever wakes up in the morning and says, I want to be responsible for 10, 15, 20, 1,000 people. I don't think anybody ever wakes up saying that. It's the passion for what you do, and maybe your values don't meet the people you're working with or working for. So that's what leads you down your own path of entrepreneurship. And was I ever ready? No. Do I ever think I'd be ready to take the next step? Inside, no, right? But you have to do it. You gotta take that leap of faith. You're gonna regret not ever trying if that is in the back of your mind. And you know, you guys can hear it from me all day. I'm pretty sure you've heard it from me before, but so we got guests on today so they can give a little insight on who, what, when, and why they started their business. So
yeah, it's hard to hear you, so we're gonna have to switch spots.
Joe, you go.
Joe, you can go first. I mean, you do got a great story. I'm actually gonna move out of the way too, because I'm gonna go share this.
History. I was a train wreck.
Say, man,
How far you want me to go
didn't have a
back?
job.
Way back. Well, I still remember the address of the Macomb County Youth Home, 380 North Rose Road, Mount Clemens, Michigan. That's the juvenile detention center. I lived there for most of my teenage years. My parents were school teachers. My dad taught accounting and my mom taught visually impaired students. And I went to, when I got into public school where they were teaching, I got kicked out of every class, and I had to be the attention grabber. For whatever reason, I never felt that I was good enough to fit in, so I wanted to stand out somehow so that people would like me. And I was very oppositional. If somebody told me to do this, I would do the opposite. I was very anti-authority. Didn't like listening to anybody who told me what to do. And those things that were once upon a time really bad things were actually became lifesavers sometime down the road. When I eventually got out of school, I saw an ad in the paper for shampooing carpets for $400 a week. And I was living in my aunt's basement. She said, "You got to have a job if you're going to live here, son." And, so I saw Jack's Car Wash and shampooing carpets. And Jack's Car Wash, and I figured that would be the best job because I could get paid cash. I wouldn't have to claim it on any sort of taxes. I could meet pretty girls and get free car washes. I'd probably pocket a few tips.
What school did you go to?
What's that?
What
It's
school?
Sterling Heights High School until I got kicked out.
Really?
Yeah,
What year?
Should have been 93. I got ninth grade. That's as far as I
You're
finished.
young.
I only finished ninth. I didn't graduate. I got a GED. I got a good enough diploma.
Good enough? Yeah, I got one of those.
And that was only because I was on probation. I had to get a GED, show the probation officer I was doing something with my life. And that was the extent of my community college as well. Was every time I was in trouble, I went to community college. Oh, he's in college. He should really, the judge would feel sorry for him. Anyway, the job at Jack's Car Wash was closed, wasn't available, so I got a job shampooing carpets. And it was a blind ad, not shampooing carpets actually. It was selling Kirby vacuum cleaners door to door. And they said if you could shampoo a room of carpet, and if you shampooed 5 carpets, 1 out of 5 people would want to buy the thing off you because it's so good. And then if you sell it, you make commission, and you get the $400 a week or the commission of $250, whichever is greater of the two. So if you sell 1 in a week, you make $400. So 2 in a week, you make $500 because it exceeds the 400. So it was whichever was greater was sort of thing. And so I brought that home, and I told my aunt my job. And she said, "I thought you were going to go work at the car wash." And she goes, "You should go work at the car wash, Joey." I said, "It wasn't available." "Well, how about the Chi-Chi's restaurant?" I said, "Yeah, they fired me. I can't go back there." "Oh, I thought you just quit." "No, I ain't." And so, well, so what's this job again? And I said, "Well, it's shampooing carpets, but it's really for Kirby Vacuum." She goes, "What? My nephew is going to be selling vacuum cleaners? You can't make money selling vacuum cleaners. What's your dad going to think of you?" And I told my dad about it. My dad says, "But my son's not going to sell vacuum cleaners. You can't make money selling vacuum cleaners." And so I was going to quit, but everyone telling me that I couldn't do it, that oppositional behavior that I had, that was just, I just wanted to rebel against what they said I couldn't do. And so I never had any sales experience. I had no people skills whatsoever. I just worked stupid basic jobs that were no-brainer jobs. And I watched some people that I didn't think were very sharp or bright. I thought I was a lot slicker than they were, making $700, $800, $1,000 in a week. And I was like, man, if that idiot can make $700 to $1,000 a week, I was 19. I said, I could do better than that. And so I eventually learned how to communicate with customers, how to overcome objections, how to close sales. And I became a pretty darn good salesperson selling vacuum cleaners door to door. It was a hard sale though, because it was a $1,500 vacuum cleaner that we were selling to somebody, typically a wife at home by herself while her husband is at work, and she wasn't expecting us. We were knocking on their door, giving her a bottle of Tide to take a look at my cleaning products. And that's how we got it. We knocked that. That's how we learned how to knock on doors also. And I became a rejection specialist because I'd have to knock on 50 doors before I get into one out. So it gave me thick skin. So all these little things in my younger life eventually became blessings, despite, how much I hated them at the time. Fast forward, after selling vacuums for several years, I didn't know anything about carpet, but I knew what destroyed carpet was: the sand and the grit and all that other stuff we've got for the base of it. And so when I saw an Empire commercial on TV, I said, "Hey, I remember that commercial from Chicago, and I used to stay out there." And so I said, "That's a good company." And so I applied at Empire today, or all those Empire Home Services back then in Livonia. They just come to Detroit. And they weren't going to hire me because they were only hiring me to do carpet guys. I had no carpet experience. I didn't know anything about it except for fuzzy setup. And they half the time they wouldn't return my call. I was very persistent, and finally I showed up at the door there, and I talked to the sales manager over there. He says, anybody that's this persistent to be, told no on the phone, be ignored by three of us, and then show up on the door, if you're that persistent, you've got to be a hell of a salesperson, especially since you sold these $1,500 vacuum cleaners. So they gave me a shot, and within 6 months, I was running circles around the top guys. And so that became my career in sales. I became a really good salesperson for them. One of the top in the country, and was number one consistently in Detroit. And they moved over to Belleville, and before we know it, we had 35 salespeople, and I was always between 1 and 2. And I left Empire. There was some things that took place that I wasn't really happy with. It just rubbed me really, really severely the wrong way, and I decided I was going to leave. And I went to sell basement waterproofing. It was a completely different type of sale. I hated it, but I was good at it because I was good at sales. And then a bunch of people that left Empire at the same time I did went down to Arizona to work for Express Flooring for Jerry Letter. And Jerry had a company here in downriver called Fairway, and then he partnered with a guy named Brad with Sun Flooring in Phoenix, and they formed Express Flooring. And it was before Empire got to the market. They basically copied the Empire way of the stock, shop at home, install next day, but they got to Phoenix before Empire got to Phoenix. And so they really set the stage in that market and trailblazed the whole area. And that market was growing super, super fast. I mean, Phoenix was this big, and the next year it was this big, and the next year it was this big, and Scottsdale, all the surrounding suburbs just became massive overnight. So they really hit it out of the park. And I got there in 2007. And then at the end of 2008, when the economy started tanking, it was like they were shell shocked. But most of the salespeople were, they're like, we can't sell. They were quitting because they're like, oh, no one's buying. They were just panicking. But I was used to selling, to people that were afraid to spend it because I was in Michigan. Detroit's economy was tanked for 20 years. These guys are like, so I had thicker skin. I didn't quit, and a lot of people quit, and I stuck it out. But a few months later, I got a DUI, and it was my second DUI. And so when I got DUIs within 7 years, my license was revoked, and I was having to go to jail in their tent city, which is their little pink prison out in the desert. Sheriff Joe Ohio made a mockery of their jail inmates. I was facing going to jail over there for that, and I had a way out of going tent city and just having to go to county jail if I moved back to Michigan. And so I toyed with the idea of coming back to Michigan, but originally I hired a driver out there to drive me to my sales boss, and my boss was helping pitch in for the price of a driver because I was one of his top salespeople over there. I wasn't their number one there, but I was within their top 3. And so he invested in hiring this girl to drive me around, but this girl was half the time she was there and half the time she wasn't. So when she wasn't, I'd drive illegally. One time I was going to cash my check, and I made an illegal left turn into the parking lot to go cash my check, and I saw in my rearview mirror a cop make a U-turn. He saw me make the illegal turn, and I took off and I got away from it. And but what happened was I was 35 years old, and I said, what the hell am I doing? I'm running from the cops at 35 years old. This is crazier than the shit I was doing when I was, excuse me, can I swear?
Yeah, you're good.
This is crazier than the stuff I was doing when I was 15 years old, when I was in another two. And so I just said it to my boss. I said, I can't do this. Well, we'll get you another driver. Every time I see my dad, he looks older. I almost got this girl pregnant in Arizona when I was down here. What happens if I'd have started a family down there and my parents are old and they need me, and I said, I just need to get back to Michigan. And so after 3 years of being in Arizona, I left Arizona and went back to Michigan, and I immediately went back to Empire Today. Within a week or so, a couple people heard that I was back. They said, you should come back. We'll get you a driver. We'll do this and that. And so I was like, okay, I'll do that. And so when I went to Empire and I met with 2 of my old bosses, I remembered really quickly after a few minutes why I left in the first place. And I just went home that day and I was like, no, I'm going back here. And so I was faced with, my house is in foreclosure, the one that I had in Michigan. I lost my place in Arizona. My car, I was hiding it from the repo guy for about 9 months, and they finally got that. And eventually I went bankrupt, and I was living in my friend's house in his basement, and they were renting a house in St. Clair Shores, but the landlord wasn't paying the mortgage with the rent money, so the house went to foreclosure. So now we're squatting in a house. It's none of ours. I got out of having to go to tent city, but the deal was I had to go to jail for 30 days here in Michigan. But instead of going to jail, because the jail was overcrowded, the prosecutor made an agreement with the prosecutor in Arizona saying, we'll put him on a 5-year probation, we'll put him on a house arrest tether instead. And the lady in Arizona was pissed off about it, but they said, you know, well, we have real criminals in Michigan. We're not gonna stick them in jail and overcrowded jail for DUI. We'll monitor them or you can come get them. So they said, okay, he could do it, the tether. And so I was on a house arrest tether. I couldn't leave the house from 9 o'clock at night till 7 in the morning. So we started throwing after hours parties in the basement of this house. We'd hire a DJ, we'd buy a bunch of liquor, we charge people $10 a head to come in. It was 3 o'clock in the morning when it would start. By that time, people are already wasted, and if they're, you know, if they're not wasted, they're doing drugs, they're not spending the liquor money anyways. And so we figured, okay, if we spend $500 on liquor and we get 100 people in the house, we're gonna walk away with at least $300 or $400 a piece between me and one of the roommates. And that's what we did. We did it 3 days a week, and we ran an illegal club out of this house that wasn't even ours. And
Good way to
the
be
gas got
friends.
shut off, so we put a bunch of space heaters in there, but good thing God we had electricity, so the DJ equipment worked.
There's entrepreneurial and then there's
Yeah.
you.
Right?
And so this is, I'm just giving you the,
businesses
I'm just giving you the background story. So I didn't want to go right to on fire. I'm just gonna share with you, I'm just being very truthful with, you know, the good, the bad, the ugly.
Transparency is phenomenal.
The ugly part about it was I was an alcoholic. I drank every day. I drank every day for a lot of years. I didn't drink because I was lonely or depressed. I didn't drink when I was by myself. I drank because I wanted to have a good time. But I did it every day. I was in the nightclub business as well. I was a promoter. I was a good promoter. And so part of being a good promoter is you're at the clubs, making friends with people and promoting your next party. And so I did that every single day for a lot of years in Arizona, in Chicago, here, and in Miami. And so that's what I did. And so I was still throwing these parties in this house. And one night I smoked cigarettes. I used to smoke Newports. I'd smoke a pack and a half or so a day. And I did that since I was 13 years old, and I was, what, 35 or 36 at that point. And I ran out of cigarettes. It was about 1 o'clock, 1:30 in the morning, and I was drunk. And I was supposed to be drinking, but the tether didn't test if I was drunk. It just tested if I was in the location. And so I asked people to go to the 7-Eleven 2 miles up the street to go give me a cup of smoke. So nobody would. I'm like, what's come on? I having this great big party. No, I'm too messed up to drive, man. What are you, crazy? I'm like, come on, dude, it's a mile away. I'm trying to talk these people into drunk driving because, you know, I thought it was normal, you know. And I was getting angry, and finally I got out of drunken frustration. I ripped the tether off my ankle and I threw it on the table. I'm like, dude, you're crazy. You're gonna go to jail. I said, I don't care. Those were my words. I said the other words, but I don't want to say it on here. And nobody was gonna give me their keys. So there was this girl that was passed out on the floor. I was just telling somebody this a few minutes ago. And I went into her purse, and to this day, I don't even know who this girl was. She was just passed out, like raw in a skirt, laying on the floor, drunk. Her beer was spilled next to her. No one was cleaning up the beer because the house was in foreclosure. They cared about the wooden floors. And I went in her purse, and I started going down the street, hitting the alarm button until I found a Jeep with lights blinking. And I hopped in her car, and then I went to 7-Eleven, drunk off my ass. You know, it would have been 3 DUIs in a row in 5 years if I would have got caught that night. And I went to 7-Eleven, I got smokes, and I came back, and on the way back, I saw this car roaring up behind me in the rearview mirror. Like, oh, I'm panicking. My heart dropped and had this sinking feeling in my stomach, thinking, oh shit, that's a cop. What did I do? You know, I mean, I know what I'm doing. I just don't know what I did that got his attention. And as I'm looking in the mirror, I hit the curb. So now I'm drunk going over the curb, and I'm thinking it was a cop, and the car went around me, and it wasn't a cop. I just like, oh my God, I was saved, you know, like, because if I would have got caught right there, it would have been 3 DUIs, felony DUI, in this much time, which would have put me felony, would have gone to prison for no less than 2 years. And then by the way, they impound the car. Whose car is it? I don't know. Stolen car too. I mean, I would have gone to prison for 2 to 5 years. My life would have been
It
toast.
wasn't looking really good for you
No.
at that point.
Plus, I was on probation. I wasn't even supposed to leave the house. I was on a house arrest tether, and I called house arrest services and lied to them. Said my tether broke off in my sleep, and I can't get anyone to drive me up there to test until the morning. And so, I mean, lie after lie after lie. And yeah, so I got back, and I started drinking a bunch of water, and I went and tested the next morning, and by God's grace, I blew 0. Got off of that. And but the next day I said, you know what, I gotta finish this house arrest thing. I gotta not mess this up, and I just gotta quit drinking. So the next day it was the Super Bowl Sunday, and we had another party planned. And by 7 or 8 o'clock that evening, people were already demolished because it was Super Bowl. It didn't have to be 3 o'clock in the morning. People started all day and drank all day. And I'm sober, and I'm just irritated. Number one, I'm going through withdrawals from drinking every day, and all of a sudden not drinking out of nowhere. And people are coming up to me, hugging me, man, this was a great party, man, slobbering and saying, I love you, Joe, man, you're the greatest mother, you know. And I'm just getting irritated and angry, and thinking to myself, is this what I'm like when I'm drunk? You know, and I just kind of isolated myself in my room for like an hour, and I started thinking to myself, what would have happened if that was a complex thing? What would I be doing right now? I wouldn't be at this party. You know, I'd be in county jail right now, you know, waiting court, probably gonna be sent over to prison. And if I go to prison, then what? You know, if I was lucky enough to avoid prison and stay in county jail, I'd be begging for, God, get me out of this and I'll never do it again. Please give me work release so I can just work and sleep in the jail. I'd be, and so what I did at that moment, when I went back out of my room and everyone's still drunk off their butts, I kicked everybody out. And I started looking around the room and I'm crying as I'm looking around the room. I remember feeling the tears in my face as I'm looking at these people that were saying they love me, they've known me since I was a kid, they're my best friends. And I'm thinking to myself, if I did go to jail last night and I went to Jackson Prison, an hour and a half up the road, who would come to visit me? And I started looking around and I said, that person might. No way. No, maybe. No. And then I started asking myself, it won't even take the time to get the paperwork to fill out to be on my visitors list. No. At that moment, I realized that I had to change my life. My life was more out of control than it was ever before. And so I kicked everybody out, and I knew how to sell carpet. I wasn't going to go back to work for Empire. And I knew a couple of installers from when I worked in Empire, and they were slow. And so they said, well, Joe, why don't you get the carpet from Floor Source? I said, what is Floor Source? Floor Source is a local, wholesale, to the trade. They said, get an account over there and they'll give you samples. And I said, okay. So I go over and I get samples from these guys. And it was 2009. So the economy was tanked. Beginning of 2010, beginning of 2010, it was super low. So it was February. And they gave me samples. They said, here, have at it. Nobody's buying anything right now. And I didn't have a license. And, I couldn't take credit cards. No merchant would sign me up because I was bankrupt, and then, there was no financing back then for anybody. And so I knew I did what I knew. I knocked doors.
Real well with that.
What's that?
You did real well with that.
Knocking doors?
No, you're working with Floor Source.
A few years.
Oh, yeah, you did well.
Not at
with
first.
that, man.
First, it was just me.
Yeah,
So
you made a name for yourself over there, that's for sure. And it was because you could sell more than anything else.
I had to generate leads. Because I can't sell if I can't get in front of the customer. And so when the topic is, when's the best time to start a business? Best time to start a business is right now. Most people go into business and they think I got to come up with the perfect plan. I've got to do this. They spend months and months and months planning with no execution. Meanwhile, they're going broker and broker and broker. Now they don't have any capital to start it with. I started with nothing. I had nothing, no investors. I had no money except for the money from the night before the Super Bowl party. I had maybe $250, $300 in my name. And so, but I did know how to make a flyer on a printer. I knew how to knock on doors because I did that in Kirby, selling vacuum cleaners, $1,500 vacuum cleaners. So people weren't expecting me to show up on their door. And I knew that I knew the laws of averages, that if I want to get in front of 3 customers in a day, then I've gotta be able to knock enough doors to do it. And so when I was on house arrest, I watched the documentary The Secret on YouTube, which you can still look up The Secret on YouTube. It costs nothing, you can watch it. Thought it was a bunch of hocus pocus nonsense when it was first introduced to me, but I said, you know what, my way's not working. Maybe I should shut up and listen to what the successful people say to do and do what they do. And my old boss used to say, if you do what they do, you get what they got. And so I just tried to copy mentors' habits from my past. And then I also listened to Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People on audiobook. I'm not a very good reader, but I can retain things through audio. And so I listened to that over and over again. And they gave me the motivation to write down goals. Instead of thinking about goals, my old boss used to say, if you wish in one hand and shit in the other one, which one's going to go full faster? He says the one with substance. He goes, so, thinking of your goals is nothing. You have to write them down on paper and put them places so that way you actually see them. And make, and the Secret, they talked about a vision board. So I made my first vision board. And my vision board was, I put a picture of a yellow Corvette with my mom's face on it because that was her dream car. So one day I hoped to buy her dream car. I wrote all these silly goals that were completely unrealistic. And one of the goals was, because when I worked at Empire and Express, the most I ever made in a year was $92,000 as a salesperson. I was a good salesperson, but I worked 9 months of the year and I took a lot of time off and wasted my money. Went back to work at that's what I did. I was an idiot. So I said, what would be a completely unrealistic goal? I've got no driver's license. I've got no car. I've got no credit. There's not a single credit card that will ever sign me up. except for my free spirit MasterCard that I had from Barclay Bank out of the UK. After my bankruptcy, they didn't catch it, so I still had that $600 credit line. And that's all I had. And I said, well, I'd like to figure out a way to make $100,000. So that was the big goal. How do I make $100,000 a year? Don't know how I'm going to figure that out. And then I started working backwards. And I said, if I can get in front of 3 customers a day, 3 leads a day, I'd sell 2 out of the 3. And from April until the end of the year, I can sell 300,000 if I can get in front of 3 customers a day. And I said, okay, so 3 leads a day equals 300K. By that time I had a girlfriend. We moved out of the foreclosed house and I moved into her condo that she was renting, so an apartment. And she was irritated with me because I put these yellow sticky notes all over the place, on the milk jug, next to the toothbrush, on her alarm clock, on her rear view mirror in her car. You know, every place I could put said 3 leads a day equals 300K. And I stared at it all day long, everywhere I went, I couldn't miss it. And I figured 3 leads a day, 300K. If I could sell 300,000, a third of the money would go to the labor, a third of the money would go to the materials, and a third of the money would be profit, which would be IP. So if I could sell 300,000 by the end of the year, I'll make 100K. And then so, you know, I just kept on working. I just knocked on 100 doors a day, because if I knocked on 100 doors a day, 30 or 40 of them would be home. You know, 1 out of every 10 of them would have ugly carpet, because carpets, you know, looks good for a year, looks okay for the second year, looks kind of okay for the third year. By the 7th and 8th year, it looks like shit. So I figured if I knock enough doors, I'm gonna, you know, come across enough people to have ugly carpet in their family. And so that's what I did. And before you knew it, the girl I was dating started driving me around. I convinced her to be my chauffeur, so I ran out of doors to knock in St. Clair Shores. And I started using my promoter skills from when I was a nightclub promoter on MySpace and Facebook and Instagram wasn't really out there at that point. It just started, but I was using social media and stuff. MySpace, yeah. Tom, thanks, Tom. Thanks, Tom.
Top 8.
Yeah, oh yeah. And you know, I had 40,000 friends on MySpace from the nightclubs, you know. But I used OPE, other people's energy. And that OPE, what did I do when I was a nightclub promoter? I got other people to be sub promoters. So I'm not the only one out there flyering cards and promoting. I got these people to advertise for me and get people to the club, and they would give a promoter code. And when they got to the door to get half off cover, so I could track, you know, got their KPIs going, the key performance indicators of who's performing and who's not. And the top 3 promoters got a free bottle of champagne or whatever it was of the night. They got a VIP thing, so they got to be a baller for the night. And so I had 10 little sub promoters making my party good, and they did the energy 10 times what I could do. I learned how to, you know, motivate other people. And that was a blessing also, because when I started my business, I couldn't scale anything until I was able to get other people to do a lot of that. I'm the power of 1, you know, but if I can get 50 or 100 people to do stuff, then great. So anyways, my girlfriend was driving me around, and I paid all of her bills first with what we made, and then everything else after that was split. And that first year around November, middle of November, right around Thanksgiving, I decided I was going to count the money. And I didn't take my eye off the ball at that point until that day. And I said, let's see where we're at. I want to look at those 3 leads a day. Where are we at? Are we at 300,000? How much more do we have to do? And we're already over 300,000. So I said, holy crap. I have a revoked driver's license, no house. I'm living in my girlfriend's place, and I made $100,000 this year. How the hell did that happen? You know, this goal stuff really works.
Where'd
So,
the money go?
What's that?
Where'd the money
I
go?
went back into advertising because I needed to generate leads that were further away from. So, you know, and then I started doing Facebook advertising and then Google pay-per-click and things like that. And then so I said, let's think of a bigger outlandish goal. So the next year I said, let's go for $1 million. There's no way to go for 300,000 with money. Try it anyways. We were 1.6 million. And by that point, it was me as a salesperson and the guy that I had driving me around after my girlfriend eventually dumped me. I hired my friend to drive me around, and while he was driving me around, I convinced him to come into the houses with me, and I taught him how to sell. So now I hired another driver. He was selling and I was selling. And then before you know it, a couple of guys from Empire that I used to work with said, hey, Joe, you know, I'm coming back to Michigan also, you know, but I don't want to go back to that place, man. You know, hey, we got a spot, you know, well, what kind of commission is it? I said, better than how it was over there, because our prices were lower, because we had no overhead. Okay, you know, so the next thing I know, I had 4 salespeople. And then next year we did 3.5 million, and then we did 5 million, then 6, then 9, then 11, then 13, and then 18, and then 20, and then 20 again, and then we've done 30 million the last 3 years. And so, I mean, we just scaled. You know, and
Well, that's going to be a hard story to follow up.
it
Thanks.
It's-
Joey's real long-winded too. He can keep on going.
All right.
No, that's awesome.
Now,
Joe.
at any point where you, like, did you ever doubt yourself, like, why did I do this?
You know what, I was blessed with, people have different acronyms for God. I believe in God, Jesus, but people have other things that I've heard in my AA program that I go to. And one of the things that I hear is the gift of desperation. Some people use that as their definition of their higher power.
That's the first time I've ever seen that.
And I had that gift of desperation. I had nothing to lose, but I had anything to gain. I had no car, no home, no heat in the house. And so I had, I always wanted to own my own business because I looked at entrepreneurs and said, man, my old boss, man, he was 28 years old, was driving around in a Viper and had $1 million in the bank, and he came from nothing when he was 20. I said, man, if that idiot can do it, I could do it.
And
If that
not,
person could do it.
and not only that, you got the sales background, right? And as a salesman, you're pretty much, no matter who you work for, you're kind of working for yourself anyways, because everything that you're selling is based on your personality and being able to sell.
Ever since I was in Kirby, I always did sales because I like the idea of being able to determine my own wages. I never wanted to work at Ford because no matter how hard I worked or how lazy I was, as long as I did just enough to get by, they were going to determine how much I was worth. If I worked extra hard that week, am I going to get a raise that week, or am I going to get paid extra? No. But in sales, if I worked harder and I devoted to my trade and I got really, really good at it, I determined my own worth.
You get what you put in.
Right, and that's what I always liked, because I was competitive in sports and I was competitive, against myself.
We had a
that's one of the
conversation
things
about that, competitive people.
Yeah, that ego, was, the ego's been my amigo and also not my amigo and other things, but that ego, that drive, that competitiveness is something that really pushed me. I wanted to be the best guy. I wanted to be the best guy who was selling cars. I wanted to be the best guy in that car. And yeah.
What about you there, Paul? I know that was kind of a long one there, but well, first
Well,
off,
sorry I got here late, guys. I wanted to bring up a couple of things that I heard here that was like, I wrote down a bunch of stuff while you were talking. Persistence that you had regardless of the condition, and you had that natural thick skin that, you were able to be told no and keep driving towards, you didn't even have goals probably at that time, because it sounds like from your story, the goals came later, but you kind of did. You still knew that you wanted better than what you had at that moment. And that thick skin, and then just pure old entrepreneurship from being a club promoter to, having the due diligence to seek out more knowledge. The secret for those that don't know is just basically, it's very core, just like think about what you want. Quit thinking about the bad things in life and think about what you want. That's, if you broke it all down and took all the fluff away and just did that, it can be a great help to, getting through some of the tough times. But also, I wrote down, it's never too late to get your shit together. It's like, you started yeah, you started, I admire people who have taken a tough road and had the thick skin and the persistence and this thought in their head, whether it's been distilled down into actual goals yet or not. It's like this thought in their head that they can do it, like this unshakable thought that, like, I can do this, I can do whatever it is. My story's pretty quick, but what I want to point out to everybody, this is about not really having, there's no right way or best way to start a business. There's some best practices, like, and a lot of those, it sounds like you had it, they kind of came natural to you almost. And what I mean by that is the natural instinct that I know salesmen who've been around for 20 years that don't do what you just said, which is, is working backwards from a big goal. If you have a big goal and you work backwards and break that into daily activities, that's how you succeed. It doesn't have a lot to do with the planning. Planning's good to an extent, but then you could you can, what do they call that? Like, paralysis analysis, you can just keep trying to reinvent the wheel until you've wasted so much time that you look back and you're like, well, I didn't get much done. And where the action takers, they just go do, fail, and learn from that. I heard a good analogy once that, when we are blown away at how precise these missiles can be that the defense departments have. And the fact is that they're off course about 98% of the time. They're constantly getting feedback as they're going towards the target until they hit the target. It's actually the failure of it that creates the precision and success. And so, while there may not be a perfect moment or a perfect time to start a business, having the gumption to do it is first, and then the natural instincts you had to work backwards from a goal and create daily activities that serve that goal. I mean, I know businessmen, like I said, that have been doing it for 20 years and don't approach life that way. So kudos. Awesome story.
It was definitely something that I learned from those two. I was dumb enough to listen and finally smart enough to follow through, I guess I would say. I eventually got life kicked my ass so many times because I wasn't born with any disabilities. I was born with a mental disability because I'm hard-headed, and I didn't listen to people. And finally, those disabilities that were self-inflicted, eventually made me finally surrender and say, you know what, maybe I should just shut up and listen to these people that are doing it the right way. Maybe I should just copy what they're doing. And so the two things that were really brought to me was that movie, The Secret, and watching that over and over and over again. And then listen to Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, because that wasn't my natural way of doing it. I learned that. I didn't invent that. Somebody trained it to me by listening to that audiobook. And one of the first ones it is start with the end in mind. And in that audiobook that I haven't listened to for several years, I remember very clearly, it says, close your eyes and picture your funeral. If you picture your funeral, you're dead in a box. And all your friends are coming up, your family's coming up, and they're saying their prayers, and you can hear them in the distance, talking about you and memories they had with you. What do you want them saying about you? How did you impact their life? What did you do in this life? What do you want them saying about you? What do you hope that they can say about you? Okay, so that's your, it's morbid, but that's your end, on earth at least, that's your end, and so what do you want to accomplish at the end of that period of time? And what kind of, outlandish goal is it? I mean, is your goal to help people? Is your goal to be successful financially? Is your goal to create something or whatever it may be? Is your goal to change the way somebody on earth does something? What's your life goal? How did you, what did you do in this world that made a difference? And, what do you want them saying about you at your funeral? Now, when you're there, how do you work backwards? If you're driving through the night from Detroit to Miami, you can only see, 150 feet ahead of you. But when you get 100 feet up, you can see another 150 feet ahead of you. When you're 100 feet up, you can see another 150 feet ahead of you. So if you look at this road map from Detroit to Miami, you know that it's a 25-hour drive. The halfway point is going to be Atlanta. Halfway between Atlanta and there's going to be Columbus. Halfway between, so you have checkpoints along the way. So you know where the end is. Now you work backwards to find the most direct route. So that's just something that
that's kind of like where the podcast came from and why the name is The Huddle, right? Because Paul's a huge football fan, so we're related to sports. And it's kind of like what you said, as a football player, you're looking at that next first down. So sometimes you get knocked back, but what are you going to do to get that next first down? And it's just,
I love how it relates to sports. Babe Ruth was the strikeout king. People didn't look at him as a strikeout king.
Right.
He was the home run king until 74 and Hank Aaron finally passed him, right? But up until way after that, he struck out more than any batter in history of baseball. Anytime you asked him what he was thinking about hitting home runs. And Michael Jordan missed more free throws, more jump shots, more layups, more, he failed over and over and over and over and over again, but he wasn't afraid to try it. And like the launch, we were talking about the missiles. I mean, you got to launch. If you sit there on the launching pad thinking, okay, I got to figure this, no, F that, launch, and adjust as you go. That would be my
it's never going to be perfect.
I've watched so many people try to plan their way, and then before you know it, they're broken. They can't start.
Here's the thing.
Yeah.
For me, it was I didn't have any, didn't have a job, nobody'd hire me, right? So, create my own business. That's the way it was. It wasn't, to talk about the right time to do it. The right time to do it was the fact that I didn't have a job. And much like yourself, man, I had the application, the Ford staffing plan on the counter, half filled out. All I had to do was pass the drug test, which was formality. You know, it wasn't an issue for me. But I kept staring at it. And my wife's looking at me. She said, "Wife, you know, hey, how are we gonna make the house payment?" She's probably a little nervous, you know, and it says, but she's the one who said it. She goes, "Why don't you try doing this on your own?" What do you mean? Doing this on you know? And so that's how it started for me. And you're talking about mine was filter clean.
I can smoke that in comparison to that. Those
well-
canister vacuums.
But, I work for Filter Creek, $10 an hour. Commission, and I was doing that while I was laying carpet during the day. And then I gave up on that because I was a terrible salesman. Absolutely horrific salesman. As it turns out, I can sell myself, not a product. All right. And then I went, I bartended while I worked. And that bartending, as it turns out, you learn how to sell things when you bartend, right? Should have done it the other reverse order. Yeah, for me, if it weren't for my wife and kid and having Chuck, coming home to Chuck, my goodness, and Kathy, if you don't provide for your kids, then I guess maybe the guilt and the feeling of failure pushing you and keep pushing you, and it keep pushes you until. No, Angel, you're gonna have your first kid here? Or you're gonna get that spades. All right, you're gonna get that spades where you're gonna come.
Your wife's watching on Facebook?
Well, let me tell you something. You can fail at anything in life. That's one thing you can't fail at as long as you're there, right? You're there for your kids, you don't fail. You don't fail because you're their hero, no matter what, right? But you also find out that love you have for your kids or for your wife, man, that drives you. And that really drives you. It makes you do things that you didn't think you're capable of doing before, in a good way. You know, in a good way. And I got to tell you, my wife is still the strongest person in my life, right? I'll come home tonight and she'll tell me exactly what I didn't do today on the way home. But without that in my life, guys, I was happy being a trunk carpet installer. 19 years old, I had my own truck and tools. I was 1099 and not paying any tax. Don't get me wrong. I didn't care. I had enough money to go to a bar like Joey would have. I mean, I was the patron at a place like that, for holding out the $100 saying, "I got this round." I got this round. I made $700 that week. And by Monday morning, I had maybe $100 in my pocket. I had to buy supplies, I had to pay for gas, and oh goodness gracious, gotta eat sometime this week. And somehow I had to make that, go through, and without Kat, never would have.
Dave, how long were you in that position before you met your wife?
Well, here's the thing, she was there all along. All right. Well, I met my wife just after I got out of high school. We were friends more than anything else. She lived in a different state. We would, but we had our own things going on. And I like to think that I like to think that I was her prize, but we all know that's wrong. But what it was we were two kids trying to figure our way out, right? We're trying to figure our way. We helped each other grow up, and at the end of the day, by having Chuck, and she had Chuck. My goodness, we got married. She was still 19 years old, I think. No, she just turned 20 when we got married. So we were really young, and we made a lot of mistakes together. And then along comes Chuck. So now, mind you, she's the mom. She grows up in a hurry. All right,
We
me,
usually do.
I'm playing softball on 17 and 17, 6 nights a week. Disappearing for the weekend to
Hey,
Colorado to play in a
happens.
tournament. You know, and I'm having the time of my life, and she's raising Chuck pretty much by herself. And she threw a fit, she threw a fit and it got to me. It got to me one night and I came home, I came home from working. And we had, me and my little brother, and you guys all hear me tell stories about my little brother. But we've been working together and we had a few. I show up at home, she cooked. She cooked and I had eaten. And so what I don't need that. I don't need to eat. I don't need to eat. So my wife is 5'3". She took that hamburger and she made it a sloppy Joe in my mouth. And you know what I did? I stood there and I took it. Took it. She smashed it up in my mouth. But it actually scared me because I got so mad. I got so mad at her that I'm thinking things that aren't right for a husband to think, right? And so what do? I leave for the night. I'll go to the gym and shot some hoops. But when I do that, I'm thinking. You're thinking by yourself, you're going, what an idiot. So I talked to my dad, and my dad, by the way, I had a great parents. Talked to my dad, I tell my dad, I says, I'm leaving. And my dad tells me, what he says? He says, you should leave. No, I said, you should. You obviously don't love her. Well, no, I didn't say that. I didn't say I didn't love her. I said, I'm leaving her because she don't love me. I says, well, does she know you love her? I'm going, gosh darn it, Dad. Why you have to do that to me? You have to make me think that I'm wrong, right? And you know what? I was wrong. I was wrong. But if it weren't for conversations like that, and there's always been people, God puts people in your way, right? He puts people in your way to when you're making all your bad decisions. Don't get me wrong, half the time you still make them, but they're still there, right? And they're still there, the people that they put in the way. And so for me, yeah, geez, oh Pete, I wasn't a hireable person at all. And you talk about that. I mean, I'm granted really good with my hands, but I was the clubhouse lawyer. And the clubhouse lawyer is a guy that nobody really wants working for him. He's a necessity as an installer because you need to have good installers, but you don't really want that guy because that guy's the idiot that tells you everything you sold is wrong. And so it took me a second to catch on. It really did. And thank goodness I did, because like I said, I got a mortgage to pay and no job. And then I started doing it on my own and it worked out for me. Right. And now I no longer run a company, but I did end up with CFI. And I gotta tell you, telling that story, and you look at these installers and they're all walk the same path. We all have the same issues in life, right? You look at the salespeople, they all have the same issues. When you get to talk to salespeople, they it because we all live in the same lives together. We're all living in the same community. We're all living and the thing about it is we help each other grow, right? And for instance, your story helps, right? Your story, when you and I talk, your story, when we share our stories that help each other grow. And that's how we do it as people. And when you grow as people, what happens? Your business starts growing. Because you're growing as a person and you handle situations better. You handle the little things in life just a little bit differently because of the relationships you make and because you learn how to deal with them as you grow. So the right time to do something is, man, get out the boat, see how it works.
When it feels right, I think, right?
What's that?
Well, I was just saying when it feels right, like.
Yeah.
Never feel.
Yeah.
Just jump out and do it.
Yeah, that's just it, Paul. You say and you're right, when you say it, when it feels right, it's never going to feel right if you wait. If you wait,
well, never.
What I tell people is I'm the installer, walk through an open door. The doors were open, I recognized them, I walked through them, ended up with this great company, right? But I did that not because it never felt right. Don't get me wrong. We were going out of business more than we were in business. And it always felt
I feel that in my soul.
Oh yeah. It always felt like it, because at the end of the day, my wife would be coming to me and she'd say, we got everybody paid, but we don't have enough for the mortgage. Right. And that's a tough, that's because you're paying all your employees first. Those guys come first.
That's why you stay in business.
And then you're sitting there, and so you're living off a credit card, to make sure everybody else is taken care of. And eventually it works its way out because you figure out where your money's going. You figure out how not to spend money on the frivolous stuff. And the frivolous stuff for me was spending time with other people. I got to tell you something. You're going out with other people and they all expect you to buy, you're with the wrong people. It took me forever to get with. It really did. We go out to the bar after softball, and I'd be paying for 3 rounds. And I come home the next day, and when I say I could come home the next day, about 4 o'clock in the morning, I'm showing up at home from the bar after softball, right? My wife's getting up to go to work, and here I am, I'm showing up. And that's always a problem as well. You don't want to be that guy. You don't want to be that guy. That's a tough way to go. And it took me a while to figure it out.
I think especially as installers, right? Because you look at the industry and especially being in the industry for this long, we're looked kind of down upon as installers because we are riddled with people that are alcoholics and drug addicts and stuff like that, and those are the type of guys that do end up starting their own business, not because they know what they're doing, but because out of necessity, right? No one else is going to hire them, so that's what they do. But those are also the types of people that never learn from any of their mistakes. They're always going to be working for that beer at the end of the day, or for whatever, whatever they're addicted to. And that's the thing, is the people that are listening to this because they're looking for that outlet. They're looking for that story where I was an alcoholic and I realized that, something had to change. My wife stuffed my mouth full of hamburger, and, you had to reflect on that by yourself. And then you talk to your dad and realize that, man, this is my fault. It's like, what am I going to do to change? And unless you make that realization, you're always going to be in the same spot. But the fact of the matter is that you started from somewhere and you're at where you're at now because of learning from all of your mistakes and all your failures. And I think that, like, if I had this 10 years ago, and if I could have listened to your story 10 years ago, or Dave's story 10 years ago, or even our story 10 years ago, and knowing that you have to fail, you have to put yourself out there and be willing to fail in order to grow, I think we would have been a lot further along right now.
Yeah, a lot of it, in my experience.
Angel has something to say too. Go ahead, Paul.
No, I was just going to say a lot of it in my experience is when I say that, like, when it feels right, we all get that, like, idea about starting your business, and it's not procrastinating in that moment. Dave did it out of necessity. In my case, I made pretty good money as a employee installer and then doing jobs on the side. But the company I worked for at the time was getting ready to get bought out like the 3rd or 4th time. And I just decided that if this is going to be the way it is, I'll go start my own. And me and one of the PMs went and started our own thing. And, talk about your wives and how family plays into it. My wife, was a stay-at-home mom and out of necessity. She couldn't really work because of some health conditions, but I made like almost 60K that last year. And I go to my wife and I'm like, hey, I'm going to go start this business. And I know we only got $1,500, but I'd like to buy a fax machine, and we're going to start this thing. We're going to make millions of dollars, right? The fact is if I wouldn't have jumped or launched or whatever you want to say, it never would have happened. And I could have talked myself out of that real quick, but out of the support with my wife and the gumption to just give it a shot, we started a business that grew rapidly, and I bought my partner out in 2003, and the rest is history. So, like, when we talk about the right timing, there is no perfect time. There's some good practices you ought to put in place, like some proper planning. A lot of this ought to come to our audience to understand that there are some hardships that have been shared here, not to say that you have to go that direction, but maybe avoid some of those pitfalls that some of us have experienced, and you know, create a company that does not have to go through all those hardships. You're always going to have failure. You just got to learn from it. So that's all I got to say about that.
So pretty much, I know I'm off camera here, but pretty much what you're saying is that when we're growing up and all those older people that gave us advice and information that could lead us to be a better person and make the right decisions without having to experience failure, that's kind of what we're trying to do here, right? Like, everybody's going to do it again on their own time, their own free will, but take some of the information that you're gathering here from everyone who's here today, from everyone who's going to be here tomorrow. Take some of that information, retain it, and use some of it. You don't have to do step by step. This isn't a template. We're not giving you advice for your life. We're just trying to help you in your forward progress of your business. That's pretty much all it is. And take it for what it is, not for what it is for you, not what it is or what it was for everyone else. This is all information. Everybody's taking a different route, and to them has experience and success for them from where they started to where they're at now.
Fail as much as you can.
Fail.
Fail as much as you can.
You're not failing, you're not
Mistakes
trying.
and losers, because losers are too afraid to try. There's no crime in falling. That's what gives
Thank
you
you.
a thick skin. You know, if you need that thick skin, and you get it by screwing up a bunch of times and learning from your mistakes. When that missile's going off course, it learns from its mistakes as it, oh, if it's off course 30 degrees, okay, we'll shift it back this way, shift it back this way, shift it back this way, and eventually you get it centered. It's trial and error. Life is trial and error. Business is trial and error. But if you sit on the sidelines, trying to come up with the perfect plan and being too afraid to get out there and fail, get out there and fail. The biggest failure is not trying.
Yeah.
Angel, what you got?
I'm a little intimidated to talk to, because I mean, I don't got big businesses and I don't got cool stories like you got.
You will.
Yeah, hey, man, you're still, you're still fairly new though, right?
I try to listen to like Stephen Colby and Brian Tracy. I do try to repeat those things as well, because I mean, you do need to have that information, like this podcast or those books or people around you to kind of teach you that stuff, because I think a lot of what it comes down to is what you surround yourself with and the people you surround yourself with. And living in an information age that we do right now, we're paying attention to this, paying attention to that. We're on our phones, either dedicating minutes that turn into hours to something that's not going to benefit us in a year or 2 years. So I think the struggle, I don't want to say for me, because I don't like putting excuses, but in general,
Experiences, not excuses, experiences.
yeah, in general, it's difficult for people to kind of aim for that, like you said, and fail because they don't have that community or that, that kind of that like they don't have that hardship where they break down, in the like psychic, or I don't know, like a drunken state in the middle of the road where they're just like, they're pressure up and they know that their life flashes in front of them, or their significant others putting that much pressure, because not everybody has that. But I don't know what's that word?
Mental strengthness.
Yeah, that kind of
capacity.
that luck, to have such good people around them. And sometimes they do have people that are just, look, it's their phone, that's their community, their people around them, that's their community. So I mean, I think chasing that like community is essential, right? Because I mean, I think I've been in solitude for like the past 3 years in that sense. They're like, let's go do this, come to this, let's do this, that. Like I'm trying to teach. Like
That's the hardest part, is letting go of the familiarity of where you're used to. And then if you
Right.
have
I
negative
mean, I
thought
always
about it,
say, like, it's human nature to hate change, right? Humans don't like change, but if you're not changing something, you're always gonna get what you got, right?
Can't expect.
Well, I mean, one of my favorite things is your network is your net worth. Like who you hang out with and who you choose to spend your time with and what you choose to consume online. equals out to where you're going. A thread throughout all these conversations is personal development and the desire to get better at stuff.
Absolutely, and if you think about it, just a few years ago, you know, none of us would have. I never would have thought we'd be in here all talking together, but it's those experiences and reaching out. You know, Paul reached out to us, then we reached out to Paul. We've been reaching out to Dave. You know, we've been fortunate enough to realize that it's important to put yourself out there, regardless of how like introverted you are, because I know it's hard as an introvert. I'm fairly introverted as well, but to put yourself out there and just be able to say and realize I don't know everything, but I do know something. So I need to learn from someone, but also I can be a teacher and let people learn from the experiences I've already had. And just put yourself out there. And that's the same thing with starting a business. It's just put yourself out there and start doing it, and make sure that you're picking up little bits of information along the way and start implementing them. I think that's the biggest thing, is having the information and doing nothing with it. If someone's giving you the information and all it's doing is sitting there, then you're just failing yourself at that point. So,
and you've seen it here, like some of the information that you can get is just past experiences along your way. You know, selling vacuums, you know, you got to deal with people. Coming home and realizing that the hamburger at home tastes a lot better than the hamburger at the bar. So yeah, you know, and it's just for me, I think it was the realization that I was leading people without knowing I was leading people, and I was putting people in a bad position by keeping myself in a bad position. So it was time to make a change, and I had to make the change for myself. It had to be my idea, and being an entrepreneur is in you from day one. You just have to realize it takes more than just yourself to unlock it sometimes, and surrounding yourself by like-minded people, or surrounding yourself with people where you think you want to be. It'll get you on the right path. It might take a little bit longer than some others, but it'll get you on the right path. So the best time to start a business is today, next week, next month. Anytime you decide, yes, I'm doing it, that's the best time.
and if you ever need to reach out, I'm sure, you know, everyone in here is pretty open to talking to anyone at some point. So, I mean, I appreciate you guys for being on the
Jimmy in the
podcast
background,
today.
sorry, brother.
Jimmy's taking it all in.
He's from Indiana, man.
Yeah, actually, he's from Michigan.
Oh, okay. He's all right then.
Hear that, he's a Wolverine.
That's right.
That's it. Go blue.
Go blue.
Go blue.
That's Ohio State.
No little brother.
But then, like, no, I love the flooring community. I love everyone that, you know, has participated and you know, engaging with us online and listening to everything that we have to say, even though, you know, sometimes we think that it's pointless, and it does get redundant because everything ties together. We all go through the same things. Jorge is, you know, on here constantly, and, you know, he'll reach out to me from time to time just to say hi, you know, and you create friendships through things like this. And I appreciate everyone that's here. Thank you to everyone that's listening. Thank you, Paul, for
Joining us, man. I think you were going to make it today.
It was a tough one. It's one of those things you got to do in business. So I get to the office and find out that we had to have a bid that we thought was just a normal bid, was a sealed bid opening with a bid bond, and we were 2 hours from bid opening and an hour and a half away from the job. So luckily I got a good bonding company that got me a bid bond, and I hustled down to Ponca City, Oklahoma to deliver it. So luckily I could make it. Yeah.
If you're ever looking for an installer in Wichita, I know a guy.
Yeah, I think let's see, how would we say the best way to describe Mr. Dwayne Pruitt?
Dusty High.
Dusty Eye Dwayne, the other PF.
But I want to thank everybody for contributing, and again, I apologize for getting here late, but thank you again to Daniel and Jose and everybody you guys put together for this podcast. I found myself listening a heck of a lot more and just kind of taking everything in. I get to learn. That's another thing. I think that you can, if you're looking to be an entrepreneur, be a consummate learner. Like, I'm 47 years old and I still learn stuff. I took notes during this podcast. I took notes during this podcast because, never stop learning. So I want to thank everybody for coming. We've reached the end of our hour here, and appreciate the input. And yeah, thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Paul. We'll see you next week. I'm sure we'll talk before then.
Nice to meet you, Paul.
Yes, sir. Nice to meet you guys.
All right. Have a good one.
All right.